Hey everyone, this is part 2 of Life of a Villain, and this is the bakudeku fanfiction reading by Fem Todoroki Shoto. I actually know her in real life, and I do have permission to read this. So, let's get on with it, because I know these intros have been getting a lot longer, and I'm trying to cut back on how long they are. So, part 2, chapter 2 of Kachan, or Life of a Villain, and this is just the name of chapter 2, named Kachan. We went on our first mission on the second week of school. I had a nice since I had no quirk. When we got to UA, we hid out. I saw Kachan and decided to follow him quietly, making sure I wasn't seen. The group told me this was just a research mission, so I had to stay out of sight. I knew it was Kachan's lunch break, but where was he going? We went out to the courtyard, but no one was there other than us. I hid in the bush and watched him sit down and started eating. Why was Kachan alone? I was about to leave, but I saw him take out a piece of paper. It had his name on the back of it, but I was too far away to see what it said. I wanted to get closer, but how? It was then that I realized that I was trapped. I couldn't leave the place I was hiding without Kachan seeing me. I moved myself so I could sit down, knowing I'd be there for a while. I guess Kachan heard me moving, because the next thing I knew, he had gotten up, leaving his stuff on the bench, and walked over to me. He was looking down at me. "Deku? What are you doing here?" Kachan asked me as he moved closer, kneeling down to look into my eyes. "Why did you leave me, nerd?" Kachan asked me, but I didn't know how to respond. Kachan grabbed me by the hands and pulled me towards the doors. When I finally found my voice, I said, "Please, don't turn me in, Kachan." He looked at me as if if I were the most idiotic person in Japan. "Turn you in? I'm hiding, you dumbass. I'll take you to my house after school." Suddenly, I felt my phone buzz in my pocket. I took it out to see Shigaraki texting me. "Shiggy, where are you? Are you okay? Did you get lost?" I stared at my phone for a second and texted him back, "Deku, I'm with an old friend. I'm fine. Don't worry, I'll explain later. I'll be back sometime tonight." I looked at Kachan as he pulled me. Somehow the halls were empty. He led me into the janitor's closet, turned on the light. He kissed me, and I felt my face turn red. "Stay in here. I'll get you after school." I nodded and he left, shutting the door behind himself. At first, I was scared someone would find me and take me into jail. But after a few hours, I knew I'd be fine. I looked at my phone and saw Kachan would be out of school any minute now. I hoped he hadn't forgotten me. I texted my mom telling her I was fine, and she told me to be safe. A few seconds later, Kachan came in and picked me up. "Kachan, I can walk by myself," I said, but he kept walking. When we got to his house, he put me down so he can open the door. I looked around since I haven't been here in forever. We hadn't talked much on the way there, so I decided to break the silence. "Kachan, you know I'm a villain, right? You shouldn't be hanging out with me." He just nodded and opened the door, dragging me inside and throwing me onto the couch. I was very confused. Why was Kachan being nice to me? I started mumbling, but was pulled away from my thoughts, by Kachan, who was now hugging me. I looked slightly up to see him, but he took that as advantage. He pulled me into a soft kiss. I kissed back. He pulled away, and we just stayed there for a minute in silence. Kachan, you just and we... Kachan! My face turned bright red. Deku, I love you, and I have liked you since we were kids. I looked at him wide-eyed, and just what he said. But, Kachan, I'm a villain and you're a hero. We can't be together like that, can we? I asked, looking at him with him in the eyes. I don't care, Deku. Will you be my favorite boyfriend? No one has to know. I nodded and hugged him tightly. I didn't realize until he wiped my tears, but I had started crying. We fell asleep there. Miss Bakugo woke me up that night when she got home, of course after taking pictures and sending to Inko. At first I was frightened, then confused as to why I was at Kachan's house, and finally I was worried about my mom. I thanked her for waking me and asked her if I could to tell Kachan that I left. I don't know how that happened, but okay. Of course, honey. But first I have a question. Are you my little brother thing? I blushed brightly and started to mumble. But how me and Kachan were discussing that topic, and I could not answer that question at the time. I honestly didn't know. She stopped me. It's okay if you don't know, Midoriya. Tell your mom I said hi, okay? I agreed and walked to the door. I looked back at Kachan with a smile before opening the door and walking out. When I arrived at the hideout, everyone was in bed, otherwise known as Dabi and Shiraki, fucking in one of their rooms by Mom laying in bed on her phone, and everyone else doing their other things, few actually sleeping. I knocked on my mom's door and she softly said, "Come in." I opened the door and walked over to her. "What did you do? Fuck?" She asked. My face turned red as I kept saying no over and over. She laughed at my response and told me she was kidding. I asked how she knew I was with Kachan, and she showed me the picture Mizuki had taken. My face turned even more red and I wanted to curl into a ball. I looked at her in the eyes and asked a question that I knew I could answer. "Are you gay?" I looked at her and shook my head. "Bi. I'm bi, meaning I like guys and girls." She nodded to let me know she understood and went to bed. That night, I dreamt of Kachan and knew I had to go back to his house. I woke up to the sunlight coming through my window and went to the bar for breakfast. My mom always cooked breakfast unless she was sick. In that case, Kirigiri would make something. My mother had made pancakes and they were delicious. Suddenly my phone rang in my pocket. I looked at the caller ID, but it was unknown. I answered the phone and heard Kachan's voice. He told me to come over, but his mom wasn't home, and it was Saturday. I asked my mom, and she said I'd go ahead. Not knowing what Kachan was planning, I pocketed my phone and walked a little while to get to Kachan's house. Warning, if you were not like 14 up, or at least 13, I wouldn't suggest reading this next part because it gets a tiny bit graphic, but not very much. Back to the story. I knocked on the door and he pulled me inside. He shut the door and pushed me against the wall. He pulled me into a rough kiss. At first I was too surprised to move, but when I found the strength I pushed him off of me. Kachan, don't do that. He looked at me, anger in his face. I wanted to run away, but I didn't want to ruin our relationship. He came closer and hugged me in a tight, warm hug. I hugged back. Sorry, Kachan, but I'm just not ready for anything like that. Earlier, I'm still young mentally. Kachan nodded and kissed my cheek. So, that is part 2. Hope you guys liked. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the bell, and like, and potentially comment if you guys want me to continue reading this. This is my friends. So again, I have permission to read this. And I haven't read the next chapter yet, but hopefully it just gets better from there. I think I have, but I can't quite remember by memory. So, hope you guys enjoyed this tap at a bakudeku in this one. With that, I'll leave it off. Bye!